tonight we have with us Brainiac, Scott again, and Wani himself. You know what I mean? So we're gonna get right into it, starting with our reactions or thoughts on the season opener. FC Barcelona at home versus Rayo Vallecano.
I guess all of us were, uh, I guess all of us were disappointed at the end of the day. But I guess all of us were probably disappointed for different reasons, and we'll get into that during the podcast. Xavi did mention that most of the players were nervous, and I was reading on Twitter, and most people were saying the team don't have a right to be nervous. I don't. Most of those people probably never control a football in their life. Players like Rafinha is them first time playing at a top level club, 81,000 people plus in the camp now, all the expectations and everything. Overall, the team was nervous, as according to the coach, and you could see that the chance creation, as much as the stats show that chances were being created, there was that final end product. There was still that level of refinement that's still needing.
Why is it that we had 68% possession and we were not able to score?
After the first 15 minutes of the match, we'll probably lose a lot of the attacking momentum. What we have? We look like lethargic. Not even lethargic. In terms of our passing, we never have much in our passing. Passing it slow, and we never did move the ball up the field as smoothly as I'd like to see.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And the cliche that comes with position is that position is what 9/10 of the law, and this was just that 1/10 where we weren't able to capitalize on the chances that we got. And you made an excellent point, Brainiac, in terms of saying that, for the first 15 minutes, we had that thrust. We were looking to get at them. And I think maybe a bit of, I don't want to say complacency, but it kind of felt like, yeah, we're Barca, this is real, Rayo rather, and we just didn't get the breakthrough. And I don't know if that caused a lack of confidence, and we're like, why are we not getting this breakthrough? And that literally caused us to kind of get a little bit disjointed. The passes weren't coming off. And I can still say that the team is lacking a little bit of chemistry. Stats say one thing, the eye test probably says that there's still a lot that we have to do in order to achieve what we think the goals for this club should be.
And we had only 6 shots on target out of 21 shots, right? And I would arguably say that the best chance of the game was that shot from Lewandowski.
Be sure you say that though, because one to the Aubameyang shot that get clear off the line, and then Lewandowski, that rebound from Lewandowski after the defender cleared off the line.
Well, I mean,
remember there was that incident in the second half where Lewandowski beat the guy, then cross it to Aubameyang.
Yeah, so naturally you would want to immediately identify any shot being cleared off a line as the best chance of the game. Mm-hmm. But to me, I didn't think that was necessarily so convincing, you know what I mean? If I was going to say, yeah, man, we definitely have a score from that chance, because that almost it seemed like a scramble to me, to be honest with you. You know what I mean? Instead of a clear look on goal, you know what I mean? And to be honest with you, I didn't see where we had clear looks on goal.
In my opinion, and I want to tell Joe,
sure, go ahead.
Rayo actually had the 2 best chances
of the game. Yeah, but I'm talking about our best chance.
Okay, cool.
I think that's a very valid point that you raised, because what can we look at? Which opportunity in the game can we look at and say, yeah, man, we had good looks? And that's what I'm really pointing towards in terms of the entire 90. Rayo had better chances than us. You know what I mean? More clear-cut chances than us. And honestly, if Rayo had better finishers, we'd probably be 2 or 3 goals down.
Or if Falco started.
So I think we can move on from that standpoint. We talked about chance creation in the first episode. And I personally had the opinion, and I still do, that it was a major great area for us last season, and probably like a half a season before, right? We really struggled with creating chances, because if you don't have good chances, you can't score. Now, with that being said, based on the result of this game, we were able to find out that Xavi now has the worst winning percentage as a Barcelona coach, sorry, in the last 20 years. What are our opinions on that?
Me not like that because that don't even make sense. I think I did say was it three prior coaches, Koeman, Setien,
And
and
Valverde,
Valverde. That were the three that they
they highlighted.
compared. Alright.
Yeah,
So the only credible persons that they should be
comparing
probably
him to.
comparing to is Xavi is
Valverde
Koeman,
and Enrique.
Valverde. No, because Koeman did a 1.5
See
season.
why
A
you say
season
that
and a
though?
half.
Why?
No.
Explain.
And we just don't feel like say it fair if you compare a win percentage by
Based on the
coaches.
sample size, right?
Exactly.
No,
It
no,
don't
Yeah,
make sense to me.
yeah,
no.
yeah.
They're not.
I
No,
don't,
no,
I,
no.
I
They're
don't
not.
agree either. Because the sample
No,
size, for instance, City
Let's
and then
clarify
what?
something.
6 months?
Hold on, one. Let's clarify something. They're not comparing him to those coaches, you know. What they're
Mm.
saying is that those are the lowest win percentage of all Barca coaches.
But
So what they're doing is they're showing you the win percentages of the all the Barca coaches that have ever coached Barca, and they're giving you where he falls in terms of the lowest, which
but
are
this should,
the lowest,
this
and
should
those
be
are
a
the ones around him.
non-point though. This he's been here half a season and couple games.
Yeah, I think a fairer representation in terms of the percentage, because I think it's what 51 games that Xavi has managed now. I don't think it's
Just
51.
about,
I think
yeah.
it's, yeah, around about that time. Then we should be showing the first 51 games of those coaches as well,
Mm.
to kind of level it a little bit and say, okay, is this actually a fair thing that we're leveling at Xavi? You understand? And I think
Awesome.
context is also important with regards to understanding where we were in the league when he took over, and the fact that he
Exactly.
took up from ninth all the way up to second. And win percentage doesn't tell the whole story. Like for instance, you look at somebody like Sir Alex Ferguson, um, 26 years at Manchester United, and his win percentage wasn't over 60%. You wouldn't
And
think that
Arsene Wenger is
looking at
also
the success that he has had, 13 Premier League titles, universally accepted as the greatest manager of all
of
time,
all time,
and
right? And Arsene Wenger is
yeah,
also another name that you can add to that mix to say that he probably has a
exactly.
win percentage that's probably around
Yeah,
30%,
Jose
probably
Mourinho as well.
20.
Like Pep is just a statistical outlier with
All
his win
right, fair enough.
percentage. You understand that you I don't think it's fair for a comparison with him, because at practically every stage in his career, he has had a settled team, a team that is anywhere between anywhere in the top five teams in the world for the most part. So yeah, that isn't a fair comparison. So I think that Xavi does deserve some time. However, if we don't see an improvement this season, then certainly we're gonna have to start asking questions, even though he's a legend at the club.
What would you consider an improvement?
So I'm looking for, as because one of the things that, and you mentioned it first, is chance creation. He needs to find a solution for that, definitely. Um, Improvement in terms of the league finish, you would want us to finish definitely on top and beat
First,
those
so we need to
people, yeah,
win La
for sure.
Liga.
Yeah, win La Liga is certainly an improvement for me. But if we don't do that, then at least the points tally needs to be significantly bigger. For me, if Real Madrid don't score, say, 85 to 90 points, then I think we should be winning the league. That's my thought process on it, and that to me is clear improvement. We also look at the Champions League as well, and we at the very least, I would say, a quarterfinal, because what not getting out of the groups, and this has nothing to do with Xavi, obviously, but not getting out of the group stage was disgraceful,
So
and
we
also
finished.
falling
We
in the Europa League was also wildly disgraceful
so
last year.
so we're going to analyze each of those things individually. But I wanted to highlight something you just said. The points tally. We finished with 73 points last year. And out of that, only 21 wins, 10 draws, 7 losses. Now, if you are drawing 10 times, right? And there could be goalless draws in that, and there could also be scoring draws in that. If you're drawing 10 times, then it's obvious that you won't necessarily be in as strong a position to determine your destiny, whereas winning the league is concerned. So, on this topic of win percentage, draws are a very important part of that, right?
Yeah.
Mitigating against a level score line at the end of the fixture.
And then the
Money.
teams that we draw against is also important too. Because certain teams, like for instance, the Cadiz being this boogie team, Cadiz shouldn't be a boogie team at all. Rayo, I don't think that Rayo is as bad as a team as especially people on social media. If you follow Rayo since them come back into the league 2 years ago, they've been pretty strong. Them coach,
The coach looks sensible.
yeah, he used to play for Bilbao. Ariola, I don't remember how to pronounce his name. Iriola. I remember I was an outfielder, man. I definitely remember him.
Okay.
Rayo is a solid team. I don't think it's the end of the world, even though we should be beating Rayo, don't get me wrong. But if we draw again to like Cadiz, because for instance, I watch Cadiz Sociedad, who is going to be our next opponent next Sunday. And if we draw into Cadiz, that's a problem. Definitely. But
so how important?
I think one of the biggest problems for us last season was we were dropping points to teams we should have never been dropping points to.
And
so
that's
that
my
should be
next
the
question.
biggest improvement.
That's my next question, right? 10 draws last season. And Scott rightfully said, how we measure his success as a coach right now is he has to win La Liga as an improvement on a second place finish last season, right? Now, we lost to Rayo, but we've drawn with them, 0-0 now, which would be an improvement on paper. But how important were those 3 points that we did not get on Saturday? How important would they be in determining the outcome of our season? Especially in relation to his win percentage, even though again it's kind of unfair.
It's too early to call.
Give me like a forecast, because again we're talking about Sociedad and we're talking about Cadiz, right? And these are teams again that we should not be dropping points to. But then again, chance creation and clinicality, scoring goals is not something that you fix overnight.
Quality that this team have in comparison to last season, if that point that we drop is that consequential, then maybe you can start asking some questions at the manager, because the quality we have, we're supposed to be able to still be winning games. We're supposed to, honestly, I really hope by Sunday, the next podcast, we can be looking back and saying, wow, that Rayo game was just, we need to just get the Kings out. But there's no way with the quality we have, we're supposed to be continuously still dropping points to the mid-table teams and lower. That's just my opinion. The quality of the team is too high this season.
Agreed. And he also said that. He said we generated, and I'm going to, just move right into the next thing. We generated a lot of expectations, right? With the winner that we've had so far, and with also just, I think probably he will end up being a victim of his own success, because to pull a team from the 9th and get them to 2nd, there's a lot that's expected of you, and also because of your reputation in the leagues that you coached before. And some people might argue that the level is not the same, but if you are a serial winner, if you've won 4 trophies out of a possible 5 or 6, or 4 out of 4 consecutively, right? If you've been known to be a serial winner as a player, and if you're a club legend, the expectation is supremely high, right? So, with this winner that we've had, and with Xavi saying, we want to win everything, and before the pre-match press conference saying we have positive feelings. Looking at this result, it really does not necessarily equate to what the expectations are. Are they fair expectations? Should we then lower our expectations for the next match?
No, but am I the only person who saw positives in the game though? Yes, there were probably overwhelming negatives in the game, don't get me wrong. For instance, Eric Garcia is improving. I know there's a point I wanted to mention. This game was probably the first game where the defenders were the best players and you might say, the defenders are the best players for the team, but us as Barca fans know that for a game in which the team don't score, but then the back line have a good game. I can't remember the last time we have a game like that. Usually it's the team don't score. I would know it's just a matter of time before either Eric Garcia or PK or somebody makes some mistake. Eric Garcia and Christensen moving from Langley and PK last year and the season before.
It's an upgrade.
I think that's
definitely an upgrade.
I think Eric Garcia really had himself in a game where you're hearing the boos, you're hearing the pressure, you're hearing the 60 minutes, 70 minutes, 80 minutes gone and the team don't score it, and Eric Garcia still handle himself well for the most part. I mean, the fact that Rayo only get 2 shots on target, again, you might be saying, oh, Rayo, but still, we know this Barcelona side. The fact that they only managed to get 2 shots on the counter after week in comparison to last season, I think that's a positive. I think
that is definitely a valid point. I am so glad
definitely.
you said
Lewandowski, if for a player that did not score in that game, the fact that he
I thought he played well.
Yeah, he played well.
You know scoring. I thought Lewandowski played well.
Another positive before we continue is the fitness of Ansu Fati. Ansu Fati seemed to be getting better and better back to his usual self. I think he was probably one of, if not our best attacker when he came on. That's a positive to know that, hey, eventually he's going to find the back of the net.
He was the most purposeful or intentful player of all the attackers that we had. You could see that he was trying to directly attack the goal, right? And try to find spaces to attack. Scott, you look like you want to say something.
Oh, no. I was actually going to say that that when we were talking about chances earlier in the game, we actually forgot the one that Ansu had and actually forced the goalkeeper to make a pretty decent save.
Right.
Yeah. That was actually one as
well. Yeah, I think Ansu as well as they have definitely showed them hot in the ring in terms of securing a starting spot for next game against us.
Yeah. But Xavi, just to run through some of the topics, he had said that the team looked nervous, and they were nervous, they were tense, right? But we still should have scored at least one with the chances that we created. And there were positives like, what he said, with the defense being the better players of the 11 on the field, including Marc-Andre Ter Stegen, arguably the best player on the night, right? And so there are quite a few difficulties, but, we were still able to, just try to search for that chance. It didn't necessarily come. And we might have felt hard done by some decisions made by, the officials and the general officiating of the entire 90. But, we weren't very effective as we should have been. And so that's really the main takeaway. And instead of blaming, the players, he took responsibility. And he rightfully said that he is someone who does not shy away from pressure, right? We definitely have to strengthen the team, as we know. And so we have until the window closes to do that. But ultimately, Lewandowski had a great game, he felt. And Lewandowski is a goal scorer, so he will score goals, right? That is what he said from his press conference. And I think we can all agree that, again, there were some positives, as we mentioned, but there's still a lot of work to be done, especially in the area of quality chances created in general, but quality chances, and of course, finishing, right? And the only way we can finish, it's not by luck, or even though the word chance is involved, it's not by chance. You have to put yourself in a position to ensure that success is the only option. So we're going to move forward a little further. We had some worrying moments of the game at the end where we saw Pedri himself probably looking a little bit uncomfortable. Reports that Dembele also had some discomfort after the game and did not train yesterday because he had some muscle discomfort. And then also Kessie, what do we want to say about that in terms of Pedri's fitness? Of course, we know Dembele is like, at this point, a nuance where injury is concerned. And then Kessie, recently being added to the team, but he was injured last season for AC Milan, and an injury scare. Let me just reverse and remove all that. But an injury scare.
Did Kessie train today?
Yeah, he trained yesterday, and he trained today. Yeah.
Okay. Question. This is just a clarification. Just to clarify, didn't Xavi post press conference say that everyone was fine.
Yeah, definitely. But I'm saying, what do we think? What are our opinions on this? The reports that there was still some muscle discomfort for some of the players, and that you know um, there is some concern in some areas. I mean, even though he said everyone is fine, and out of those three players, two trained. What do we think about the longevity of the season and ability to rotate players, ability to keep players fit, and ensure that we don't run the risk of having the most important players of the squad being injured? What do
Well,
we think?
it shouldn't be a problem, especially this season. Our scouting department made sure of that. Sporting director made sure of that. We have a stack team. The only covering players we don't have is at the fullback areas. But well, yeah, at the fullback areas. But apart from that, we shouldn't have much issues in terms of not having enough cover in any of the areas, then especially from the midfield open the attack, because we have enough quality cover. It shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, I would agree. For the most part with that. But to be honest, for me, the person that kind of that concerns me the most is Pedri. He gives us something that's just completely different. And I'm not gonna say that we don't have other players in the squad that can't,
That bring
step
value,
up or
right?
anything. But
Uniquely,
even at
uniquely,
19,
right?
this brother is absolutely essential to the way that we play. And we can already see that in preseason he's starting to develop a really good relationship with Lewandowski. Um, being able to pick that pass, play off him if needs be. So, I mean, seeing that Pedri was a concern from an injury standpoint is worrying, and you kind of have to find that balance between he's an important member of the squad and he needs to start, but at what point do we then say, okay, he needs a rest and then
Yeah,
bring
we can't
somebody in?
overdo it.
Yeah,
Like Coleman last season, because you rightfully pointed out that he is uniquely, vital to the team. It's not that we don't have value or quality elsewhere, but it's just you don't have another Pedri. You'll probably never have another Pedri ever in the history of football or the world, right? He is, by every definition, a generational talent, right? And you don't want at the most crucial points of
Points
the
of the
season,
season.
he's out. And then
yeah,
remember again, also Spain's number 10, right? So that in itself just shows you or proves how vital he is as a player to any team that he's a part of. So I
But I
felt
also
that was
have
a
an
little bit
important
worrying.
question to add to that, Javi. Like,
Go ahead.
Let's ask ourselves this. Apart from Pedri, in the terms of player profiles we have in the midfield, how many other creative midfielders we have? That's what I was wondering going into the podcast as well. Apart from Pedri, who else? Because would we consider Gavi a creative player?
Yeah, to an extent, yes.
A
Frenchie,
chance creator?
yes,
certainly not to the levels of Pedri though.
not to the levels of Pedri,
Yeah,
but if
in
you
terms of
ask, you
consistent
asked,
level, they say we can rely on them for create chances.
all right. So you asked, is he a creative midfielder? My answer is yes, right? Not at the level of a Pedri, and not on a level where we can depend on Gavi. Definitely not. But I don't see where that's not possible from him. Maybe not in the beginning or the opening games of the season. Definitely not. That's something that he would have to start to focus and concentrate on, train his mind and body to do, and then also try to practice that in in-game situations. But in terms of our options of creativity, we are spoiled for choice. And I still think that he is still feeling remnants of the 100-game season when played. Because 100 game the man playing in 1 year. That's unheard
Yeah,
of.
because I asked that question. The reason why I asked that question is because I'm pretty sure all four of us disagree, and we'll touch on it later. That's probably the reason why they're still going after Bernardo Silva. Because he's probably the only other, he's probably, then when he comes into the squad, if he comes, then they have two out and right chance creators in the midfield.
Mm.
Well,
Fair
that's
enough. Fair
true.
enough.
Especially in that
I think,
interior position. Especially in that
Mm.
interior position.
Scott.
yeah, I was just about to raise the point about interiors, but I think also that this also there's also a responsibility that Xavi has as well. If your main creator is missing, how then can you get the best out of the rest of the squad?
With that being said, let's remove the outlook or the perspective of having the wingers for a minute. And to Wani's point again, we would want an option, right? Because if we're discussing that we want Pedri to not be a risk or at risk of injury, and we're looking for options, he rightfully pointed out we cannot look to Gavi. We cannot depend on Gavi, right? Frankie can make those forward runs. Frankie can definitely thread passes forward. But who can we say would we want to replace Pedri, or what options would be there to ensure that we are still you know, solid in that regard, and we can still not have a deficit in terms of what Pedro would bring.
Yeah, so I feel like that Scott was alluding to is Pedri, we all can agree that Pedri is a key player, isn't it, in the midfield trio. But what happens when, not even considering injury, what happens if him fall off farm, right? Like what happens if him just not play at the level what we want to do? The team as a whole have to compensate for that. They have to be more effective in terms of chance creation and everything like that. Considering that either Pedri isn't there or he's just not at the level to play at. He's just not at the high level.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's the point that I was making. Like, it can't, chance creation solely isn't a midfielder's job or a
Mm.
central midfielder's job. It can be a team thing, because you have forwards that are extremely good at creating chances. I wouldn't necessarily call Roberto Firmino 2 3 years ago a forward, but when you look at how he was able to facilitate um, Mane and Salah basically to score a truckload of goals. We can't necessarily say that we should be throwing all the creative burden on Pedri. And if
Mm.
he is not there, that's what I'm saying. It's down to Xavi to find
Mm.
solutions for that.
All
And
right,
one of
that
those
is a
solutions
fair
could be the
point.
use of our wide players. Yeah.
So that's a very fair point. So what I'm trying to do is create a picture for our listeners, or just for anyone who would be actually interested to understand how we would set up or how we would approach a situation in which Pedri is indisposed or just not at the level that he can give us what it is that we know he can or what we look to him for. So this is what I'm thinking. Pedri, for whatever reason, is not available or not giving us the output that we would need, right? Before the ball gets to a winger, or if we're gonna use team chemistry, or we're gonna use the team's build up as the alternative to Pedri carrying the ball forward, somebody would still need to carry the ball from the defense forward in that at final third. Create that picture for me, paint that picture for me. How would we do that?
The system has to be efficient, and that's down to Xavi. Efficient in terms of from defense, midfield, attack. It has to be efficient. So it doesn't matter who is missing necessarily. The team's supposed to play the same way.
Exploring your question that you asked, one of my problems I had with Gavi and Pedri in the game, especially in the first half, those spaces right in between the
Yeah,
middle
yeah,
of the field and the box to get that final pass or that ball progression that you're talking about.
yeah, yeah.
Pedri and Gavi wasn't occupying those half spaces at all. Either them dropping too short to Busquets and relying on Busquets to pass the ball short, or them little bit too wide. Several times during the game, I'm saying, why are we not staying in that half space? Why are we not occupying that half space where it's like would that be the two centre back and the two holding midfielders, that space right in between all four of them. Pedri and Gavi not doing that. And then at the end of the game, I'm thinking about it. That probably just come down to experience. At the end of the day, Pedri and Gavi are 19 and 18, respectfully. It take a lot of experience to be able to occupy that space and know, say, all right, when I get that ball, I'm immediately going to be under pressure for 3-4 people and have either the ball retention, even though they do have the ball retention, but you have to have the
Yeah.
experience into how to use that ball
Right.
retention to
Because that's
effectively
what
create
Javi
the
is an
space.
expert at, right? Because that's what
Yeah.
Javi used to do, occupy that same space. And remember, well, I'm not sure if we analyze but Xavi is always scanning. Pedri's absence is a huge problem, right? And until, aside from the fact that we'd probably be able to make the team efficient and set up the team in a way that his absence is not noticed or missed, at this point in time, at this juncture, based on how they're used to playing, it's a problem, right? And it's something that we have to figure out going forward because, again, the season is extremely demanding and long this year specifically. We had 4 offsides, Rayo had 4. Why so many offsides? What were we not getting right?
Yeah, that's actually an interesting point, and I wanted to mention that earlier when we were talking about the front three, but like how we're talking about offside, that's a good thing to mention right now. Dembele and Rafinha aren't good runners off the ball. It's ball to foot. It's them strength. That's what one of the factors. I think
So we need
going
to work on
forward,
that.
at least one of the wingers have to be somebody that make proper runs in behind the channels, and I don't think Rafinha and Dembele's strengths lie there.
So that's also something that Xavi has to work on in terms of how to instruct them to be in the right spaces at the right time and to make the proper runs to be able to receive the ball in, attacking or advantageous areas. All right, very, very good point. And Marc-Andre ter Stegen literally kept us in the game, right? With at least 3 key saves and key moments of the match. What do we think about that? One, you had spoken about the fact that he had a really underwhelming season last year.
Yeah, and he was coming off that surge at the beginning of the season. Remember, Neto was playing for a couple, like a month or 2 at the start of last season. And I think a lot of fans were unfairly on him, given the fact say, hey, you have keepers like David De Gea that go through a bad patch and just never return. We just never seen David De Gea ever again. And I don't think ter Stegen is at that point in his career yet, but I thought he was really sharp again. When that ball go over the top and that guy sent Araro to Disneyland, When him sent Araro go to Disneyland, I was like, see there, we're under 1. And that was a brilliant save. And then the second save in the second half was also a pretty quality save as well.
I don't think we should also underestimate the fact or what's probably playing a role in ter Stegen's resurgence, which is the World Cup. He's been fighting tooth and nail to get that place from Manuel Neuer. And he sees this as an opportunity to make
more now than ever. More now than ever.
Yeah. To really say, I should be Germany's number.
Let's hope he does what he needs to.
Probably.
And that's fine. As long as Barca will benefit from that, I have no issues with that. None.
Problem. True. And what's so funny is a lot of people thought he was going to leave for Bayern Munich because, it's almost guaranteed that you will start for Germany once you're in that team. But that's definitely a conversation for another time. We're glad he's here, and he's definitely showing that he wants to be on the level to contribute to the continued success of this team. All right. Araujo at right back, the leadership that the team needs in defense. Is Araujo able to do that at the right back position? Because his contributions in the game at right back helped to mitigate against some of the wingers that Rayo had, right? So there is value there, but is placing Araujo at right back consistently good for the team overall? The morale of the team, defensively, leadership that's needed. What do you think about that?
You can stop. No, the answer is just to address your point. As things stand, and I agree with Brainiac, I have never been utterly convinced by Eric Garcia. I am still not his biggest fan. So it would be Araujo and Christensen starting at centre back for me personally. We would bring in Dest at right back and work with that as best as possible. But if we take away your restrictions and all that kind of stuff, as I mentioned before, for the future, and there were reports saying that we would be able to register Kunde as of tomorrow, I believe. So moving forward, our centre-back pairing would be those two. But in the meantime, while we don't have Kunde for a full 90 minutes, it would be Araujo and Christensen. I think Christensen is very good on the ball and will give us that progression to deep. He can get the ball into Busquets, and then we can work from there. And Araujo is that all action type of person who is going to make tackles, make
He loves to
interceptions.
defend. Araujo loves to defend,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I've been
that's
wanting
his.
I've been wanting a person, a defender in the team for some time now who actually enjoys defending, and Araujo is that player.
Yeah, man.
No, but
Well,
what about the
Aroha
fact
said,
that
Aroha said, I'm still learning to play as a right back. Rayo had a very fast and skillful winger, and we had to contain that. But overall, he was comfortable there, and he will do what the coach tells him to do. Now, we have different opinions. We felt like he should not have been there, started there, or even played the full 90 there. In a game like an El Clasico, for example, where again, we probably don't have a Kunde, right? What options do we have?
I mean,
we can talk about what our centre back pairing is till Die Kingdom come, but we're forgetting to mention that Xavi said he wants both his centre backs to be able to play the ball. And that's Araro's biggest weakness. We even see it when he was playing right back in that game. So I think this is going to be a topic that we just literally have to wait and see how that play out. Because Zida Araro improves, because I do think, because even from the time when he was being at Barca B, Pimienta improved this ball playing skills, because I used to watch him a lot at Barca B. At Barca B, Aurora couldn't play the ball at all. So where Aurora is had a lot to do with him just in development over time. So it's either Aurora improves his ball playing ability, or Jules Kunde, who is an excellent ball passer and ball carrier, is going to is going to cement one starting spot, even though he's not registered. So let's not mention him yet. Or it's Eric and Christensen again. We see Eric and Christensen again in the Sociedad game, because I think Xavi pretty adamant that he wanting two centre backs to play the ball. What I think though is that when the team dropping deep, you need your full backs to be able to progress the ball as well. And the same problems you see with Arara at centre back, you're even going to worse see it when him playing right back in a game where the other team are playing with two lines of four drop deep. Arara couldn't progress the ball at all. At all,
So,
he couldn't progress the ball. So
so one
the
of
coach have to just figure that one out.
our fellow supporters, DJ Matic, says his preference would be Aroha and Garcia. And because Garcia is a ball carrier. Uh, Agreed on the ball carrying standpoint, but again, I think a point that Brainiac or Scott mentioned, under pressure, Garcia is not the best person in the centre back role at any given time. So that's probably something that we probably have to try to figure out. And as you rightfully said, we just have to figure out how to pick the best players, because Aru at right back consistently is definitely not sustainable at all. And for the leadership aspect, as you guys rightfully said, Aru definitely has to be there because he has the level of intelligence that the team needs in a back four or back three setup. So with that being said, moving from that standpoint, we are faced with a dilemma, especially for the next two games, because we don't have Sergio Busquets available. Sergio Busquets was shown a red card, two yellows, but definitely a red card after unintentionally, I would say, elbowing Falcao in the face. And I am a trained referee, so I can tell you that an elbow is a straight red. For anybody who didn't know, any of our listeners who didn't know, an elbow is a straight red card offense. He's definitely going to be out for the Sociedad game. We don't know if he's going to be given a 2-game suspension or they will appeal and only be one. Is Sergio Busquets now a liability?
Sergio Busquets is just class. I certainly think that over the past 2 or 3 years, we've seen some weaknesses develop, which are probably more physical than more along the lines of something technical. Because you don't necessarily lose that, but I think Busquets was never the fastest player to begin with. And I think that, especially with the rise of teams pressing a lot more, players becoming far more athletic, players becoming far more fit, it is probably a little bit easier to bypass him in the midfield. His ability to be able to read the game does get him out of trouble a lot, I would say. But in terms of that physical side, we're seeing where he's on the decline, and I think even as probably one of Busquets' biggest fans, it is probably time that we try to phase him out of the team. When you look at the move that we made to put Nico Gonzalez on loan, you kind of wonder what the thought process is there. Is Frank Kessié going to be our holding midfielder when Busquets isn't available? Is it going to be Frankie de Jong? Whole heap of questions to be asked. But about the man himself, I think he still has certain qualities that this team needs: ball progression, the ability to read the ball, obviously leadership in the middle of the park. That's the kind of intangible stuff that you can't really put a price on per se. But I think for the future of the club, for the health of the midfield, we probably need to start looking into replacing him.
So with Sergio Busquets not being available for the next game, and you said possibly utilizing either Frank Kessie or Frankie de Jong, right? Reports are saying that the person tipped to replace Busquets as a starter would be Miralem Pjanic.
Yeah,
Um,
because they're saying
do
that's the
we?
name you guys forgot to mention. He's the
No,
guy
no,
who's more than likely going to
but
start.
aside from the fact that we have those options, do we still continue to play a single pivot with Busquets being that operator, or do we go for a double with his lack of availability, and then also use this to test to see if a double can work in some instances, right? And still avail, interiors or ball playing central midfielders.
You feel like De Jong, especially in the last match and in pre-season, definitely has taken a pin that he should not be left out of this team.
Of the starting
Regardless,
11, of the
yes,
starting 11. Okay.
yes, regardless of whether he will go or not. If he's here, he starts. I think he has enough merit, has shown enough merit in terms of his performance. Especially when he come off the bench last game, definitely show that he's class.
He was the most
And
positive player on the field after he
yeah,
was done. Right.
and as much as I like Gavi, they Gavi, I'm choosing there.
So we're going with
He's
a double then.
available.
So we're going with a double, and in transition, Pedri acts as a forward. Sorry, not as a forward.
No,
He
in
adds as a
transition,
forward.
Frankie acts as that.
Yeah, Frankie
I
adds
don't want
numbers
to.
forward.
Exactly. Yeah.
So Pjanic would drop deep. Frankie adds numbers forward, and then Frankie would assist Pedri in going forward, along with the three attackers.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, great.
If you're really talking about somebody who's astute defensively to help out, I think that yeah, as long as him fit and him 100%, I don't think it's Frankie De Jong. I think it's Frank Kessié. I think Frankie De Jong still going to be on the bench again. And then Pedri, who I think one of Kessier's strongest suit. And even when he came on, a lot of people wasn't talking about that. And we've been seeing it all pre-season. Kessié have a really great ability to read the space between him and the next player, or him and the marker, or him where the ball is going to be. To cover up for that space that Pjanic is going to leave, I think Frank Kessié does a better job in covering that defensive space in the midfield than Frankie de Jong. Frankie de Jong, most of Frankie de Jong positives is what we're going to see when he has the ball to him foot moving forward.
So,
But in terms
so
of have somebody astute defensively, I'd still start Frank Kessié.
I think he was exceptional in a double pivot, and I think that's where he's most comfortable. The ability to be able to impact the game both ways, because we can see preseason and even
yep,
in the match where he got a couple chances, he's
he
excellent
was
with
everywhere.
runs,
Yep,
and he
yep.
covers the pitch superbly. So he has to start for me personally. Whether he plays as the deepest person, that remains a question, and I think probably that's why Pjanic has to start. I'm not in favor of it, but in terms of creating an overall balance, then that probably is the best three.
But moving forward, um, there is still no clarity on whether the single or double pivot system, sorry, is more sorry, which of the two, or either of the two, is more beneficial for us, given the pieces, the tools that we have available to us, and then definitely the steps that we want to take forward in terms of the opposition that we'll be paying. But the red card that Busquets received was a bit harsh, but still understandable, as it's considered a weapon. That's the reasoning behind it. So though we can look at the replay and see that it was not intentional, right? And to be honest with you, I think Falcao also put himself in that challenge. But at one point in time, Busquets would not necessarily find himself in a situation like that, where he would have to make such a move or a challenge, right? And he was already on a yellow card before that, which is why he got the second yellow and then got the red. And I'm saying, is Busquets at the level now where he can consistently start these games, right? Is he at the level where we should start to think, okay, we need to make a decision on, are we going to start Kessie there? Are we going to start Kessie and somebody else because Kessie is more used to a double pivot system at AC Milan? Are we going to start Frankie there? What do we do? Because we cannot continue to have these offenses happen, right? Whether by Busquets or anyone else, or we cannot continue to have this low intensity midfield, slow passes, you know what I mean? Slow to build up, and therefore find ourselves at a disadvantageous position where we're chasing a game. So again, I want to know, is Busquets a liability? Like, is he doing more harm than good?
You see the first yellow, if we're talking about the liabilities then of Busquets, look at the first yellow. Busquets clearly get beaten there, had to drag him down. You can tell that Busquets gas.
Yeah,
but
and that was a tactical foul that had to be made.
That was a tactical foul, but that came from pretty much him not being able to cover the ground. So he just had to make that tactical foul. Probably somebody like Kessie could, instead of having to pull him there, could continue to play and run with him. You feel, you get me? So there are liabilities in Busquets, we know that, but here's some stats. Busquets covered the most ground in La Liga more than any other player last season. Busquets is also the player that played he played more minutes than even Marc-Andre ter Stegen last season. I still think personally, until we see glaring examples that Busquets is still, if not the first, the second most important player in the entire team. I think when it comes to our build-up and transition from our half to the other half, there's no other player who still have that can do that.
It's worrying, to be honest with you, because again, if you have to so early in the game make, judgment calls like that, you're at a risk for the rest of the game, or at least for the rest of another half. And if you're faced with a situation like that, you're putting additional pressure on the coach and yourself, because the referee now has your name in the book and you have to be extra cautious. He came on and then he started to have that intensity. We had the ball a little bit more. We started to kind of be able to absorb a bit more pressure, but we were still lacking going forward. Should Ansu Fati have started the game? And should Frankie have started the game?
If we are basing it off what Xavi or what we saw in the preseason, Dembele and Rafinha definitely secured if we are going off merit. Dems and Rafinha definitely deserve to get the nod.
But with what he said earlier, right? It seems as if they are each struggling to understand when and how they should press forward or drop back. If you're having two players who are doing the same thing, wouldn't it be more sensible to have a different player profile who kind of understands that positioning going forward, as opposed to two players?
I agree with that, but that's in hindsight though. If I would imagine that coaches give players starts based on merits. And again, if we're judging all the preseasons that both players had, who can argue that both at least should get an opportunity in the first league game of the season? However, now that we've seen what's happening, and one definitely brought up a good point, both basically have the same profile, but the feed. Now that Xavi's hopefully Xavi is seeing or noticing what we're noticing as well. And is that we need at least one of those rivers to go in behind.
I was also saying that context is also important with regards to the performance of Ansu as well, because you introduce him in the second half. Defenses are tiring. You can probably say that their mental, focus is not as high as it was, and he was able to make an impact because of that. Now, I am not taking anything away from Ansu Fati. I still think he's right up there with Pedri in terms of someone that can go on to be a generational talent for us. But I think game state and context is also important with regards to how we look at it. That being said, however, Ansu needs to start the next game, for sure.
Xavi favors Dembele at the moment. You can see it in how he has kind of made his selections, or even how he tactically set up the team. you can see that he favors Dembele, because what Dembele is bringing, Rafinha is able to bring it to an extent, but Dembele is still given certain responsibility that Rafinha isn't. And you see Rafinha having more freedom to shoot. We know that Dembele is capable and he can use both feet, but Rafinha is expected to probably, make some crosses, dribble a little bit and whatever, whereas Dembele is expected to be able to
Create
link up and
chances.
cross and create chances.
Mm-hmm.
So it's clear that he favors Dembele a little bit. But aside from that, for me, it's dangerous to have two players of the same profile on the field at any one time, especially whether in midfield or attack.
It
Because
make you one
if
dimensional.
no, it won't be one dimensional. It'll be two dimensional because you have Lewandowski. But if you have a player like Lewandowski who is marked out of the game, then you become one dimensional. And that's dangerous. And it limits your ability to adapt to what your opponent is doing to keep you out of the game and then adjust your approach to be able to find goals. And I think that's where Xavi went wrong, because we were struggling and still adamant and stubborn in terms of our approach, and still trying to, as he rightfully said, the approach was to try to find a free man. The free man was intended to be Lewandowski, but no one in La Liga is ever going to give Lewandowski time and space.
Yeah.
And he's
Mm-hmm.
not a player who can necessarily, in comparison to a Benzema, for example, or to a Luis Suarez, or to an Etu Henry or a Messi, he's hardly a player in comparison to those that can create that space for himself. If Ansu is not giving us, that kind of gameplay at that point in time, then we can sub him off, and then we can say, all right, let's bring on a Rafinha, or let's bring on an Aubameyang, or if we still have the fifth option, let's bring on Memphis. The decisions of the referee severely affected us. Lewandowski was already having a difficult game because he was being marked out of any available spaces to shoot or to pass. And then there was an opportunity when he was definitely being hugged by a player and brought down by
Two
that same
time.
player,
Two
right?
time.
How much will horrible referees affect us for the rest of the season?
I mean, we spoke about this. We spoke about this over the weekend, and again, I want to reiterate again. I'm not making an excuse for our overall play and say that it's because of the referee alone, but this was abnormally bad. Hernandez, him name, like,
Yeah,
who's
yeah.
her? Why you call somebody? Whatever. Let's not even dwell on that. But the referee, it's not even just the penalties, because me and Brainiac was talking over the weekend, and I asked a question. And I asked it to everybody on the panel now. If we even got one of those penalties and it scored, we guys think the game would have turned out like that? And again, I'm not trying to make an excuse.
No,
but if
you're
we
right.
had at least got one of those clear-cut penalties, you
You're
think
right.
the game would have turned out the same way?
You're right. It would have changed the face of the game because we'd have gotten more confidence and kind of found ways to test the goalkeeper or the defense and eventually find at least two more goals.
Yeah,
or one
and
more.
Rayo
So
tactically couldn't set up like that anymore, because now them under one, them have to try to get an equalizer.
first season opener, sorry, in 8 seasons that Lewandowski has failed to score in the first game. So probably that penalty would have given him the confidence, to find more creative ways to score.
Lewandowski is probably one of the most standard nines we've had in a while.
Since Ibra, probably.
Since Liga, probably. So I want to think that Xavi has to make this team make Lewandowski the focal point in terms of getting goals in this team.
Exactly.
I'm not too sure if I'm comfortable with that, because if we're talking about Xavi being a Cruyffista and being a student of total football comes with the exactly, and the top three interchanging and having the ability to create and score on them own or whatever.
A lot of movement, nobody really being static.
Exactly.
Has its benefits. And to be honest, Lewandowski is the type of nine that actually can adjust and adapt to that gameplay. So it's the best of both worlds where he is concerned. But I think I agree with you on that. As a matter of fact, I know I agree with you on that. And that's probably the only drawback for me is eventually Lewandowski is going to be that type of player. right? And if you set up the team around that a person like Lewandowski, second nature or habits are going to come to the fore, which is lurking, waiting for it, and expecting to be able to be in a position to shoot. Instead of off the ball movement, moving around, switching around, and all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be interesting to see
It's going to be very interesting. It's going
to
to
see
be very interesting.
how Xavi can actually make us efficient with a player like this. But it's not impossible, and definitely we still have those options around Lewandowski, like a Dembele, like a Rafinha, like an Ansu Fati, like an Aubameyang, who can actually give us that if Lewandowski is unable to for any reason. If we have a game of almost 1,000 passes of death, we call it, there's definitely going to be more opportunity for Lewandowski to be more positive, if not scoring, definitely helping to provide a final pass or finish. As Xavi rightfully said, Lewandowski is a goal scorer. He will score, so we're not necessarily too concerned about that. The final topic is the fact that we need to reinforce our defense, the fullback area specifically. Jordi Alba, extremely off the pace and off the level that La Liga demands, right? And you could see when he was subbed off, almost out of breath, looking like somebody who probably had COVID-19. We saw where we all felt like Alejandro Balde was the first choice in the left back position. He played really well last season for Barça B and for the games that he had for the first team, and he played really well this preseason. Left out, snubbed even because no minutes. The right back role again, still a lot of uncertainty there. No confidence to the point where we can start Sergio Dest and Sergio Roberto again, not Sergio Roberto at age 21 or age 19. And then we had to resort to Araujo. So we have been linked to 5 right backs. I feel like these names bring us to the point of almost panic buying, because we just need somebody to fill the role, and we have to kind of find whoever else will fit the system best and whoever else is available at the moment. And then we also have to be mindful of how much we spend, because we are still unable to register players and we don't necessarily have that wage or budget space. How do we fix this?
Diego Dalla and Aaron Wan-Bissaka should not be an.
They're known to be ball playing fullbacks, and then we know
the Villarreal right back, I wouldn't necessarily call him a panic buy. You get me? He's a good option. He is a good option. Foy. I haven't watched enough of Leverkusen to know about Frimpong, but when I do watch him, he seems decent, but I don't know enough of him to form my opinion. But I do know.
How do we fix this issue that we have at the right back? Because regardless of whoever we buy, right, what do we need to do? We have options. It's not like we don't, right? We don't want the option that Xavi used on Saturday, which is to start Araujo, regardless of who we buy, because at the end of the day, we'll buy somebody tomorrow. The person is not going to start the next game or the next 2 or 3 games, right? And even if they do start, they're not going to play a full 9. The person is still not going to be able to just drop and hit the ground running in Barca starting 11. How do we fix this?
I mean, if you're talking about the next game or immediately, it might have to be the same 2 options we see. Because again, if we're talking about the last game, Sergio Dest didn't even get picked at all for the team. So that says a lot.
He wasn't even in the squad, right?
He wasn't even in the squad at all. And they can say they left him for technical decisions, but that technical decision could just be technically you're not good enough. So we're not that could just be the technical decision, you get me? So we don't know. So I get what you're saying. We're talking about immediate answers.
Yeah.
There might not be an answer. There's probably an answer. We just can't get an answer.
Who out of those 5 names is the best option, the best quick fix? Because
definitely
Foyth. All right.
Yeah, because they I don't know if it's an actual quota reports, but they were saying that Xavi want a right back that can also play in a centre back in case he needs to switch over to that back three. Foyth have a lot of experience under Emery doing that at Villarreal. Him have experience, Champions League semi-finalist last season, win the Europa League the year before. Still young, right. I believe he's 23, and he's really good on the ball, pretty decent. better than Araro on the ball. I don't know if he's as good as Sergio Roberto. I'm
Do
not
we
sure.
necessarily want to go for another right back that is not necessarily as
All
sound
right.
defensively as he is in attack? Do we want to go with someone who has better attributes, better attacking attributes than defensive? Do we want to continue to do that, especially when the left back role is under the same context?
You'd probably want a more
It's
balanced right back
yeah,
in terms
because
of
I was
can probably do a bit
wondering.
of both.
Yeah, it really depends on the profile of player that Xavi is specifically looking for. In terms of the current balance that he wants to set up for his team. If you want to get somebody that's defensively solid and is half decent on the ball, then Foyth is obviously the best option there. He's still
Right.
relatively young, and in many ways, I mean, I wouldn't say Viral is necessarily a rival, but you'd be weakening somebody who can
Right.
probably take some points off you as well. So that by I think from the standpoint, if we're looking at defensive solidity and creating that balance, then obviously he would be the choice that is best for sure.
Scoreline predictions and the starting 11 predictions.
I think it can be a tough game on Sunday, especially the fact that it's going to be at
Same.
them. They looked really well. Them look solid. Mikel Merino look like him picking up on him form from last season again. They buy Brice Mendes from Celta, who was really good for them at Celta. So them have a lot of attacking options and them pretty solid defensively. I don't know. The question is on Xavi and the rest of the team to see if we can be sharp enough to play against them on Sunday. But what I would say on the other hand is I don't think they're a team now. They were more like that last year and the year before when they won the Copa del Rey. I don't think they're
Yeah,
going to be the sit back and defend and then try
definitely
hit
not.
us on the phone.
I
That's
think
a
no team
positive
wants to be that team that sits back anymore, especially
Mm.
playing
anymore.
us. And I'll tell you
But
why they
in
don't want
terms,
to do that playing us, because we were so vulnerable last season. Teams would prefer to try to attack us or counter us and take their chance and see what happens rather than just sit
yeah,
back and show pressure. Right. So I think we have to be very, very, very prudent and efficient about the starting 11 that we pick because we need points. Right. We
definitely.
need to have that confidence going into the opening half of the season, and we have to have a win that kind of lets us see like, okay, it's not crisis mode just yet. Let's get things going.
It might still be Aurora again at right back. None of us like it, but it might still be Aurora
Mm.
right back.
Mm.
He's especially in a game like that. I don't think him going to want to mix up the centre back partnership at all. So it's still going to be Christensen and Eric Garcia again. Is Alba going? It doesn't matter. If Alba could be on one crutch, Alba is still starting again at left back. I don't think he's going to trust Balde in a game like that. As we discussed prior, the midfield, we already pretty much already said that Kessie, Pedri, and Pjanic. Moving forward, again, it depends on the fitness of Ansu Fati. What I would not want them to do, as all of us would agree, is to rush Ansu Fati. So if the medical team still telling them that him can't play a full 90 or start, we're going to have to probably see the same. Scoreline prediction 2-1. We win 2-1.
All right, Scott.
Yeah. In terms of the lineup, I don't have much different from that. To be honest, I think the back five in terms of the goalkeeper and the back line is going to remain the same. As one is say, Jordi Alba could be in a wheelchair. He's just going to start. That's
Yeah,
just how things are right now. And that is, I think that's a damning indictment of the club in terms of recruitment. We
Yes.
definitely need to start. And because here's the thing, Jordi Alba could probably regain some fitness and really hit the ground running, but we can't depend on that. He's 33 now, and we need to move on from that
Well,
as well.
aside from that, I saw a video earlier this week. PK and Jordi Alba don't train with the intensity that the league needs. So if you're not training that way, then you're not gonna put that out on a given match day, right? And
probably
as you
they
said,
can't
it's
train that way anymore.
right, and it's damning. It's damning. But
Yeah.
yes, Scott. So you said same lineup. Um,
More or less. I mean, for me, I personally want to see Frankie, Kessie, and
Pedri.
Pedri in midfield, and up top, Ansu, Lewandowski, and I would actually go with Dembele over Rafinha.
All right.
Um, Scoreline prediction is actually the same as money, 2-1,
So Dembele, Lewandowski, and who?
and Ansu.
All right,
It's
great.
gonna be
Okay,
close. It's
so
gonna be close.
same scoreline. All right. For me, I would say I would hope and I wish that the coach would just give Balde some minutes. I don't think he's gonna start him, so we're gonna go to the same back four. Same midfield, Frankie, Kessie, and Pedri, and Ansu, Lewandowski, and I would want to see Rafinha start because I think the injection of pace and skill that he has to beat players would actually help to lift everyone else's level because Rafinha has this thing where he's just going at it just like Ansu, but Ansu would be more the person to push off the ball and shoot, whereas Rafinha will be trying to beat 2 or 3 players. But probably Xavi is going to favor Dembele, so we're going to go with um, Ansu, Lewa, and Dembele. I want to say 3. I want to say a clean sheet, but I think he probably will concede because again of the issues with Arujo at right back and the lacking of leadership. So 3-1. Brainiac.
Yeah. Senior back five. I just changed my midfield three combination because personally I want to see um, Pjanic at the link, De Jong and Pedri, but logically it what makes sense. Probably gonna be Kessie, um, De Jong and Pedri. The front three, yeah, let us go with the same front three to start weekend. Still don't feel like something
Ansu.
100 and so it's 100 like fit and firm to start. So I'm gonna stick with the same front three to start weekend.
And I forgot to add something as well. If he doesn't start, Ansu will at least start Aubameyang. But please don't start Dembele and Rafinha together. Like
Hopefully
it takes
Aubameyang is
away
still
from what we
here.
can say again.
Yeah.
I said
Yeah,
hopefully
but I
Aubameyang
mean,
is still here.
Chelsea has to find 30 million, right? So with everything else that they have going on, if they don't find 30 million, we're gonna have Aubameyang for at least 2 more games. But
Oh, my scoreline,
line,
1-0 plus. Yeah.
all right, clean sheet. All right, great discussion, and thank you everyone for just showing up, turning out, and giving your opinions, and everyone else in the background who weren't able to make it today, but are definitely a part of the group. Thank you, and Visca Barça.
Visca Barca.